What's up, everybody? Brothers, sisters, psychonauts, and seekers of truth. It is Ananka, and welcome to my bazaar. Today, I have an O-DSMT trip report for you. The title of this trip report is The One with the Deafening Potato Chips, and was submitted to Earwood in 2020 by the user Anatoly Smorin. With all that being said, let our story begin. Background information. I am generally experienced with substance usage. For slightly over a decade, I have been experimenting extensively with dissociatives, stimulants, tryptamines, phenethylamines, benzodiazepines, opioids, and opiates. I take 5,000 IU of vitamin D3 daily, along with 2,400 milligrams of mesalamine for a lifelong stomach condition. I do not consider either of these to be a contributing factor in this experience. All of the dosages in this report were prepared on a freshly calibrated 0.000 milligram scale. The materials were sourced from a vetted chemist and tested using several reagents. I am confident the substance consumed was indeed O-desmethyltramadol. Due to paranoia, I did test the batch with fentanyl test strips as well. Results negative. Please note that I will refer to the O-desmethyltramadol as O-DSMT for the remainder of this report. I very much so enjoy the set effects provided by pain relief materials. I do not have a built-in preference for strength of experience when using these substances. Depending on set and setting, I sometimes aim directly for a nod-out experience, while other times I do not enjoy venturing past a light buzz. On the evening of the experience detailed below, I was aiming for a higher intensity experience. I began my experimentation with O-DSMT with an allergy test, and then slowly titrated doses from 10 milligrams to 92 milligrams. All of my experiences, perhaps 15 in total, were spread out in such a manner that my tolerance returned to zero before the next trial. I have only used the substance orally. In the later trials, I began to play around with multiple dosing events with the goal of beginning to explore the deeper waters the substance might provide, as well as understand the tolerance curve. Tolerance was a non-factor in the experience detailed below. I do consume alcohol on a regular basis, typically at least 4 to 6 drinks per day. So there is some tolerance present with this substance. My plan was to take my single highest dosage for my primary dose, still significantly less than my previous total in one-night ingestion. Once this settles, I want to take a strong booster dose to see about nodding out on the substance, or at least getting up into that realm of intensity. T plus 08:03 p.m. I'm very full from the dinner I ate about 20 minutes ago. I did not eat breakfast or lunch today, so the large meal turned extreme hunger to an overly replete stomach. I am mildly concerned about my pants button busting. A minor headache, dull but distracting, has manifested in the past few hours. I blame lack of water consumption for this. I carefully transfer 130 milligrams of the light cream beige powder, very fine texture, onto a single-ply piece of toilet paper. I wrap the substance up and swallow it inside the small bit of paper. After 17 minutes, absolutely no effects yet. I attribute this slow onset to the food consumption directly prior to the O-DSMT being eaten. Typically, this substance gets going much faster than this, even at low doses. I am intrigued and surprised by the drastic contrast with previous experiences and today's. A slight awareness develops of a sensitivity in the area where my teeth connect to my gums. The nerve pathways produce an energy that I cannot ignore. I address the constant, slightly irritating effect with antsy mandible movements. I'm not jawing or grinding, but the center of my lower set of teeth ache annoyingly. I get myself some chewing gum to distract from this. While in the kitchen retrieving the gum, I fill a glass of water, which I consume immediately. Also, I open a light beer, 4.2 alcohol by volume, to sip slowly as the O-DSMT comes on. 35 minutes. I sit, awaiting the true experience to begin. In preparation of laziness later, I decide to start a fire in the living room fireplace. There is no difficulty in starting the fire, as the come-up continues to be exceedingly elongated. Some minor mental relaxation and a natural lack of caring are slowly creeping into my mind. I also note a lack of desire to consume alcohol, which at this point in the day I would normally fill. I am at a plus-minus level on the Shulgin rating scale. 38 minutes. Things just hit. Hit hard, slammed. 15 seconds ago, I was questioning a plus-minus, but now I am at an undeniable plus. My eyeballs are the grand marshal of the effects parade. They have gained weight, become obese in their sockets, feeling twice their normal weight. An intense pressure rushes through them. It feels similar to if I was sober and shutting and squeezing my eyes with all my might. My mind is dropping some of the lingering concerns that always accompany a high-dosage experience. The slow onset has kept things mellow, and this is totally fine for me. Although my intention is to end up in an intense experience, not being immediately overwhelmed is always comforting. 38 minutes. Overweight eyes are the only physical sensation detectable at this time. My legs, torso, arms, legs, and feet all feel completely normal. Walking to the bathroom is as uneventful as one might expect a 30-foot walk to be. I find urination easy. I have been seated on the couch for the majority of the experience, up until my bathroom break. As I stride back to the couch, I begin to feel a tingly heat radiate in the shape of a V that crests my shoulders. The two endpoints of the crescent shape are directly on my collarbones. The singular point of the shape lands on my spine, about 10 inches below the bottom of the nape of my neck. A physical heat is easily registered in this clear formation. The effect is strongest directly over my trapezius muscles, just to the side of where my neck extends vertically off of my shoulders. This is completely new for me on O-DSMT. I take particular note of the sensation given that this is perhaps a unique effect only present at certain dosage thresholds. A minor drafting issue with the fireplace requires my attention, forcing me to once again leave the comfort of my couch. Mischievous smoke has begun to roll back into the room, curling backwards and upwards over the mantel. The first step to remedy the problem is opening a window immediately besides the hearth. I then hastily ascend the stairs to the loft where I open several smaller windows and turn on the ceiling fan. While this only takes a few minutes, and is not much more than a minor inconvenience, my mind grinds with irritation. Expelling the feelings of vexation with deep breaths proves futile, as I rapidly descend into anger. The anger boils deep within me and is as sharp as a dagger's edge. This is well beyond a blunted and general frustration that I would expect from this scenario if I was sober. As the problems persist, I adjust my strategy and rearrange the fire itself. Using high-temperature welding mitts, I move the logs deeper in the fireplace, so they are touching the stone in the back. I take a few logs and stand them vertically. I hope that this new positioning will reduce the physical space smoke has to reach the grated doors of the fireplace, and thusly its ability to enter the room. This awkward log and coal structure will also allow the fire to burn out much quicker if the winds outside continue to blow against me. The movement seems to have a positive effect almost immediately. 1 hour and 1 minute in, 9:04 p.m. I finish the beer I have had open. The negative mood is already draining away very quickly. I decide to leave the windows open for a while and continue to monitor the smoke. Looking over my shoulder at the fire, I make my way to the kitchen and mix myself a whiskey and Diet Coke. 1.5 fluid ounces, 40% alcohol by volume. Back upon the couch, I get under a blanket, finding my feet to be a bit cold. The internal glowing here that was wrapped around my shoulders had disappeared and never resurfaces again. The squeezing, pressure eye sensation is slowly setting in. Still present, but not as intense currently. 1 hour and 7 minutes. I take one small hit from my cannabis oil vaporizing pen. As intended, swift intensification of effects are felt. My eyesight goes momentarily blurry. Focus returns, but only so long as I do not move the eyes left, right, up, or down. Any movement results in a fuzzy visual field until my focal point stops in a given direction for a half second or so. Once still, everything appears normal. Perhaps the colors are more slightly saturated, but no more visual effect than that. Pressure in my eyeballs themselves coils and pulsates. This is the most prominent physical effect still. But even after the cannabis, it is less intense than earlier. I evaluate myself to be at a plus, not yet close to a plus on the Shulgin rating scale, with my goal being a heavy experience. I am thinking about the proper time and amount for another dosage. The revived fire, along with my blanket cocoon, has finally provided results. I am at a comfortable temperature in the majority of my body, and my feet begin to lightly perspire inside my wool socks. I am a little dull-minded, not sure what to think about, and not particularly interested in anything. I am content with reruns of a simplistic comedy and sitting by the fire. This is a far cry from the nodding out with the fire as my only required entertainment evening that I had intended. 1 hour and 12 minutes. The pressure inside my eyes has smoothed out. It is now more steady in its presence. Less peaks and valleys of intensity. This regulated potency is pleasant. It is by no means euphoric or explicitly enjoyable, but it lends a more comforting and positive feel. A quick repositioning finds me lying on my back, neatly tucked into the soft blanket. 1 hour and 17 minutes. My mind feels good, but I cannot quite let go and just enjoy the effects of O-DSMT. It is not euphoric enough or strong enough to allow a full escape from everyday thoughts. Something about it just seems incapable of achieving the intensity of forcing me to abandon my normal thought topics and patterns. An hour and 22 minutes. Restless and yearning serenity. I take 6 medium hits from my oil cannabis vaporizer. By the time I am exhaling the final hit, my eyes seem to be physically buzzing. My head droops a little and a weight pulls down on my brain. It is not the wave of euphoria one might associate with heroin, oxycodone, or other more common opioids or opiates, but it is a pleasurable and an increase in intensity without a doubt. 1 hour, 32 minutes. As the physical sensations in my eyes lessen, I complete a scan of the rest of my physical self. There is almost nothing of interest to report. I catch myself lightly clenching, but not grinding my teeth. Writing notes in my journal provides evidence that my fine motor skills are slowly deteriorating, but far from a point of being frustrating or bothersome. It is time to prepare a second dose. It has been for some time. My scale and bag of O-DSMT are only about 15 feet away from me, but I am exceedingly lazy. The torpidity is entirely mental. Physical sedation is entirely absent, but motivating myself to move is onerous. I can tell things are still progressing for several reasons. I begin to develop the munchies despite my full stomach, and spots of itchiness are spreading randomly around my back. Soon the need to itch spreads from my back to my arms, my neck and face. Boy, this feels good. As soon as one itch is satiated, 2 more materialize. An hour and 37 minutes. With my mind too active to enjoy viewing the fire as its only stimulus, I throw the movie The Matrix on my laptop. The backdraft smoke issue seems to be remedied for the time being, so I force myself from my seated position to close the nearest window. While up and moving about, I add 2 logs to the fire. Despite my hatred for draft issues, my desire for the comfort of soft lighting, smell of burning wood, and warmth outweigh the potential reemergence of the problem. The itching persists. I am almost entirely content to just chase the prickling sensation with my fingertips. Walking is not difficult. I can tell I am not sober, but general navigation through the house, as well as more minute movements such as shutting windows and pouring a few snacks onto a plate, are not particularly challenging. I do clink my teeth accidentally against my glass as I take a sip of water. While on the return trip from retrieving firewood from the basement, I turn the corner into the staircase too soon, bumping my shoulders into the doorframe. I suppose I am a little stumbly, but not nearly as severe as when I'm drinking alcohol heavily. I run while carrying the wood. I had a spooky, uncomfortable feeling from being in the new space. This very minor burst of physical activity leaves me more winded than it should. My heart rate after the jaunt across the basement, up the stairs, and to the fireplace is 121 beats per minute. Returning to the couch, I am taken aback by a sudden chill. The combination of being out from underneath the blanket and being near the open window, it is 7 degrees Fahrenheit outside currently, have brought cold inside my bones. I realize I have probably been cold for some time, particularly my bare feet. O-DSMT has a way of making me not realize I'm cold until I'm just about freezing. In a similar fashion, it can blind me to the fact that my extremities are sweating at times. 2 hours and 10 minutes. As I begin to weigh out more O-DSMT, I feel it is not a bad idea to double-check for negative interactions with LSD, which I plan on consuming tomorrow morning. Initially, the internet proposes potential ill effects from this combination. I dig through forums and harm reduction websites, using my best judgment on the legitimacy of the information I find. Being that reducing my indecisiveness is one of my favorite parts of O-DSMT experiences, this quandary that is delaying my redosing is slightly frustrating. My mental capacity is clear enough to navigate this online advice. I am also able to connect via messaging applications with knowledgeable friends to discuss and analyze the possibilities. Frustrating or not, I decide the decision is worth due diligence to decide now whether or not I will potentially need to change tomorrow's plans or adjust this evening's dosage. The mental effort, especially given the topic, is sobering me up. I don't feel that my judgment is severely impaired. My logic is that I can revisit the decision about LSD and O-DSMT overlapping tomorrow, and if desired, I can easily abort the tryptamine plans. It makes sense to enjoy the full experience this evening rather than potentially spoil both tonight and tomorrow by cutting the O-DSMT short. I believe I have dedicated an appropriate amount of time to the decision, not overthinking it or underthinking it. I can't shake the indecisiveness. I'm still pondering. Any risk is not worth it, but is there any legitimate risk? 2 hours and 25 minutes. I weigh out 40 milligrams and don't bother with a parachute or capsule this time around. I clean the scale's weighing tray before using it tonight, so I am comfy licking the powder directly from it. The taste is definitely one of chemical nature, slightly acidic and bitter, but not particularly unenjoyable. The taste profile is unique. I have spent a fair amount of time trying to think of another food or chemical that shares most or even some of the flavors of O-DSMT. There is no topical anesthetic effect to holding it in my mouth. The taste grows as the saliva builds, but never becomes any more unpleasant. After 3 minutes of not swallowing, the saliva is approaching maximum capacity, so I gulp it down. Taste returns to normal within a minute or so. With the substances swallowed and the decision committed to, the effects of the O-DSMT begin coming back on stronger. While researching and contacting friends about the decision, I had felt myself coming back towards baseline drastically. This reminds me of how I feel when I am outside in the cold on a psychoactive substance, and upon returning indoors and warming up, the effects intensify rapidly. Excited to be diving back into the fun part of my evening, I pull 9 large hits of cannabis oil from the vaporizer. 2 hours, 36 minutes. I finish my mixed drink and pour another with 1.5 fluid ounces of whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume. I can't get my eyeglasses comfortable on my face. They feel like they are always in the wrong spot and constantly slipping down my nose. I go to switch them out for another pair. The change is effective and the issue is gone. Serene perfection washes over me as I walk past Kai and G, who are both asleep in bed. I reflect upon my tremendous amount of love for them both. I ponder life without Kai. I cannot imagine any meaningful or enjoyable life scenarios without Kai. I write in my notebook that she is the one, alongside a note to figure out a non-cliché way to communicate this idea. The term makes more sense now. perhaps, than ever before. 2 hours, 47 minutes. I am really beginning to feel lovely, physically and mentally. My shoulder joints radiate a bit of warmth, nothing extreme, but a light, pleasant glow. Accompanying this heat is a gritty sense of rotational movement. The ball and socket of my shoulders are more tangible than normal. Even while sitting still, it feels as though my humeral heads, the ball part of the shoulder assembly, are made of wood, and someone is gently applying sandpaper to it in soothing circular motions. Thoughts are simplifying. I concentrate only on my eyes. I am teetering on the edge of nodding out. A pattern emerges. 1. I think to myself, open your eyes. 2. With tremendous effort, I get my eyelids to open a sliver. 3. My eyelids drag open, making them buzz with euphoric pressure. 4. My focal point shifts upward as it comes into existence, a super slow motion version of what happens when one opens their eyes after awakening from sleep. Things are still blurry. 5. My eyelids automatically droop shut once again, lightly grinding with pleasure as they fall. After this cycle repeats numerous times, I try to begin and stay alert. Every few seconds, my focus fails. My eyes shift their gaze in a new direction without my instructing them to do so. When this rogue activity happens, my muscles behind my eyes feel stretched, as though I am straining to look as far as possible to the right or left, even if this is not the case. Shutting my eyes for a moment is the only way to regain proper control of my focal point. Sometimes this is required as often as 2 or 3 times per minute. It borders on annoying. Slowly, the need to fight for control of my vision lessens. Normalcy still evades my ocular performance. Although I can direct my view to a target area of the room, it seems as though my eyes overshoot the spot chosen by my brain. The sensation is physical, not necessarily lethargic or like a nod. More like my eyeballs are too heavy for their supporting muscular structure that normally shifts their direction with ease. A unique type of fiendishness infiltrates my psyche. It differs from typical, purely hedonistic, Moorish desires like I might get from fun-button substances. Examples: mephedrone, cocaine, or nitrous oxide. Instead, these desires seem rooted in my desire to have an intense experience tonight. My rational mind disagrees, thinking it easiest and perhaps wisest to retry again in the future with a higher dosage and less food in my stomach. I'm feeling underwhelmed, but there is not compulsive desire to correct this. Rationally, I would place myself at a ++ on the Shulgin rating scale, but it isn't necessarily intense in the way that I desire. 2 hours and 59 minutes, 11:02 p.m. Idly munching a few potato chips, it feels like someone has cranked the volume all the way up inside my head. This is unbelievable. Everything is thunderous. Is Zeus using godly thunderbolts to smash apart these chips inside my mouth? Externally sourced high-pitched noises are more increased in volume than other tones. The movie is hard to hear on the laptop at full volume, located right in front of me. But the crackling from the fire overpowers the voices and sounds of the film. Even the fire is nothing compared to the internal audio amplification. This is, as best my memory serves, the single most extreme experience of this specific auditory effect. Exploring the auricular world, I speak loud to myself. It sounds foreign, like hearing myself on an audio recording. I also feel like I'm talking too loudly, although I know my volume is appropriate. 3 hours, 10 minutes. Emotions are nicely boosting now. The dullness from earlier is gone. I am not sleepy. There is almost a touch of energy from the substance. My skin tingles from the inside out. Immeasurably small points are felt, making a network of connections between my bones and the surface of my skin. Each of these connectors is shaped like two circular objects connected by a straight line. The sphere that contacts the surface of my skin, rather than the bone, is far more detachable. 3 hours and 16 minutes. I sit up to weigh out what I intend to be my final, peak-inducing dose for the night. My mind feels reasonably sober, but my coordination is very poor. Like, really poor. Like opening the bag of substances is proving difficult. Once I prove victorious over the small crease of plastic, I face the greater opponent of actually tipping powder into the scales tray. With all my might, I attempt to hold the tray flat during the weighing process. I still almost dump it. Almost. I do spill some powder with my hands erratically shaking. Even with my mentally clear state of mind, I absolutely cannot command my hands to do simple tasks. I make several serious attempts at holding the tray level. Not possible. This is a huge red flag. I am a little shaken up by how severe my motor skill impairment is. It is an easy decision to put the bag away and call it a night with the O-DSMT. It is truly a bizarre feeling to be so mentally aware and present, while at the same time possess this extreme degree of physical inebriation. I am bizarrely too deep, while at the same time underwhelmed. I am in control of my mental capacities, but frighteningly uncoordinated physically. I take a resting pulse reading, and the results are comforting, 57 beats per minute. Deep breaths feel normal enough, no shallow or haggard breathing. With the decision made to not redose, I am quickly re-immersing into other thoughts and allowing myself to take in my surroundings. The hearing sensitivity is making me a little jumpy. I have the familiar feeling one can get of being spooked when home alone late at night in the dark. The house creaks intermittently, and my limbs jolt each time. I can't help but look trepidatiously in the direction of the noises. This is a far cry from the opiate effects I generally enjoy. Unwavering positivity. As far from skittish and spooked as one can possibly get. 3 hours, 32 minutes. A few glances at the clock provide the insight that time is passing slower than my interpretation of it. Each minute seems to last 5 or more. Besides this dilation of time, my mind is clear, clean, and darn similar to sober. Being so level-headed while so physically intoxicated is truly idiosyncratic. I finish my second drink and pour another. 2 fluid ounces, 40% alcohol by volume. My eyes do not lag when I change focal point anymore. Instead, there is pressure and an oscillating glow of warmth behind the eye sockets. I pick up my notebook and pen, but before I connect the two, I realize I have forgotten what it was I found noteworthy. I don't want to go to bed, but I will soon anyway. There are things to be done tomorrow, and since I am not taking any more O-DSMT, I am most certainly feeling a mixture of underwhelmed, discontentedness, and my responsible mind is telling me that continued drinking will probably not turn around the evening in any significant positive manner. My movie has also ended, and starting a new show or activity seems unattractive. 5 hours, 22 minutes. I am always a bit paranoid about mixing even safe dosages of CNS depressants when there is no need to. I elect to use my 5 milligrams orally of zolpidem to assist in falling asleep. I would have preferred a benzo, but this will work just fine. As I climb into bed next to Kai and our dog G, my resting heart rate is a slightly elevated 76 beats per minute. It is strong, easy to find and measure. Other times with this substance, I have generally found finding my pulse a little difficult. I don't feel energetic, so I can only attribute the increase in beats per minute to the O-DSMT and the light physical exertion of moving into the bedroom. I am not able to stay awake long enough to warrant a time check in bed. Sleep takes me quickly. Discerning between sleep states is difficult. It feels as though I enter hypnagogia almost as soon as my head hits the pillow. I don't have awareness between the next stages of dreaming until I can tell I am in REM. I process my dreams as two entities. One is the me that is interacting, not lucidly but with awareness in the dream world. The other is a mental capacity more grounded in reality. It is constantly thinking. This second perspective is not in a completely awake state. It is not functioning as acutely as I would during the day, but it carries on an independent internal conversation. I have no issues processing both of the existences at the same time. The one more grounded in logical thinking takes a definite front seat. The dream world is in the background to such an extent that I can't fully acknowledge its existence until I rouse and make my way to the bedroom. 9 hours and 7 minutes. As I pee, I am reeling mentally, trying to dissect and make sense of what my mind has been doing for the past 3.5 hours. I start with the facts. I am tired, not particularly rested. I can recall the dreams I was having in a hazy, hidden behind a veil sort of way that dreams are often remembered. I did have the obvious feeling of waking up, so I was without a doubt truly asleep. Prior to waking up, the majority of my non-dream thoughts were stuck within the conversation topic of, why am I not able to fall asleep? The collision of my two mental entities is a very curious sensation. I return to bed. Both partitions of thought resume just as they were before. 13 hours and 9 minutes. At some point during the night, I fall into a deeper sleep that completely dominates any remainder of the waking thought portion of my consciousness. Sweet, friendly, and seraphic warmth surrounds me from above as the mattress supports me like a cloud from below. An uncomfortable position is not possible to find. No matter the mixture of blankets, sheets, pillows, and body, I am unbelievably comfortable. My eyes lift without hurry, and I find the soothing glow is from the tender rays of sunlight that splay beautifully into the room through the large windows on the southeast wall. This is perfection. The best part of the experience by a long shot. I'm a solid plus, but in a much more pleasant way than last night. Additional details. Nearly all of the topics included in this commentary section are related directly to the experience described in detail above. A handful draw from the other experiences I have had with this substance. Throughout the more intoxicated portions of the experience, I had issues with executing the translation of thoughts into speech. The ideas were intricate, succinct, and useful when inside my head. Creativity and thoughtfulness were internally enhanced, but I had trouble translating into words. Other times, even inside my head, The chain of thoughts became choppy, and I had difficulty thinking more than one step ahead of the current thought when verbalizing. All of the effects from the O-DSMT were of constant intensity. There are no large waves up and down. The intensity curve of the substance seems to be very simplistic. Come up, plateau, come down. Emotions were easy to access. Sadness, empathy, and happiness all seemed closer to the surface than normal. As an example, my eyes filled with tears during cheesy moments of comedy shows. This was an unusual but pleasant and notable effect. No appetite suppression is noticed while under the influence of O-DSMT. The opposite is true. Only minor taste enhancement is experienced, but I have a classic case of the bottomless stomach, similar to when I am on a high dose of cannabis. The ultimate intensity, the highest achievable high, has not always been impressive or predictable for me with O-DSMT. The duration, however, has never been a letdown. I usually feel the effects, often at a plus intensity, well into the day following ingestion. The lingering effects are welcomed and sometimes my favorite part of an experience. I generally feel numbed, slightly simple-minded or fuzzy within my mind. Physically, I am the tiniest bit uncoordinated, like walking through a dream. This characteristic is especially enjoyable when I have nothing to do the day following the experience. When at work, these persisting effects can be pleasant and manageable, or uncomfortable and anxiety-inducing. The general nature of O-DSMT is not the most euphoric, not the least euphoric. The substance is enjoyable, but it would not be one of my top 3 or even 5 picks if cost was no option. It can provide reprieve from everyday life, make anxieties and worries feel miles away. This is smooth and genuine in its nature, but the material always lacks a wow, I feel good sensation. When using O-DSMT, I found the onset, with an empty stomach to go from baseline to a plus minus, is roughly 20 minutes. A total of 35 to 40 minutes is required to reach a plus level. The classic opioid itching comes on in about an hour. Past this, effects vary greatly depending on setting, and stomach contents. A full stomach seems to drastically alter both the onset and overall intensity of O-DSMT. Immediate tolerance does not seem to be an issue. I can redose within 3 hours of an initial dosage, and it will boost duration and intensity, not just duration. Any third or thereafter dosages need to increase in size and with less time between them in order to increase effects. Otherwise, they just extend duration. I have only combined O-DSMT with a handful of other substances. Cannabis paired nicely with it. Cannabis usually acts as an intensifying agent when I layer it onto other substances, and this is especially true with O-DSMT. Within seconds of smoking, nearly every time, the physical effects of O-DSMT would be exponentially stronger. This potentiation usually lasted between 30 seconds to 10 minutes. Typical cannabis effects were generally not felt. Alcohol did not offer as significant of a boost to effects when used in tandem with O-DSMT. The two substances intensified each other in a general sense, but the most notable synergy between them was the fact that O-DSMT masked the level of intoxication, both to myself and to others, that was present from drinking. I did find myself sometimes staying up later than I should have on work nights while drinking and eating O-DSMT. Nitrous felt largely the same in unison with O-DSMT as it does when I am sober. The duration was slightly elongated, but not to a drastic degree. I used varying dosages of O-DSMT on the tail end of S-ketamine, ketamine, and 2-FL2-OXO-PCM experiences. This made the transition out of the dissociative state easy, but I prefer benzodiazepines for this role. The O-DSMT usually kept me awake longer than I cared to be. The only times it was enjoyable with dissociatives was if I underdosed and wanted to rally the evening a bit without the mental aspect of tripping. Due to the intentional timing of ingestion, the O-DSMT come-up usually eclipsed the come-down of the other chemicals. In this experience, and others with O-DSMT, I did not suffer from any nausea. I don't usually with opioids and opiates, as much as some other folks, but I did not even have a hint of stomach discomfort. A common sensation I experience, and perhaps one of my favorites from O-DSMT, is the substance's ability to make the past, even events that happened earlier in the same day, feel like a distant memory. My ability to live in the moment and liberate myself from overthinking and overplanning is genuinely enjoyable. A form of escapism is truly achievable with this substance. While this sounds great on paper, the escape provided by O-DSMT feels more like being distracted than genuine liberation from my issues. Along these same lines, I experience a more typical type of distraction. While cooking on this substance, I require alarms on my phone or Kai to keep an eye on the clock for me. Otherwise, things burn. Other than cooking, I have found low doses of O-DSMT to be helpful at making mundane tasks seem less of a chore. Laundry, washing dishes, or cleaning the house all can become more enjoyable. Dosage and timing is key for this, though, because at some point, laziness usually takes over the experience, and I am rendered relatively unproductive. The pain-killing ability seems medium at best. I have successfully eradicated muscle soreness from extensive workouts and days prior. I have not used the substance to treat more serious injury or discomfort. I don't get the feeling that it possesses the ability to completely erase pain. It has provided relief from alcohol hangovers, but not as well as benzodiazepines. I don't ever experience giggles when on O-DSMT. Smiles are slightly easier to come by than when I am sober, but this is about the extent of the standard O-DSMT mood elevation I have learned to expect. The auditory effects usually begin about an hour after oral ingestion. They generally remain at full capacity for about 20 minutes before entering a slow decline. Dosing this substance can be a bit finicky. Even with all my trials and tests, I cannot always achieve the desired level of intoxication. An empty stomach or not seems to be the largest controllable variable that affects onset and intensity. On a day that I had not eaten beyond a light breakfast, I was able to nod out at a dosage of less than 100 milligrams oral. I have enjoyed O-DSMT as a tool used to add a layer of intoxication on an evening when I don't want to consume more alcohol. It also is fine on its own, but usually I find myself taking it to satiate the desire to alter my mind and body in a different way than alcohol, cannabis, or benzodiazepines, which are my three most common weekday materials. My general opinion of O-DSMT is that it is a bit dull, but for the price it is a treat. Given unlimited options, I would prefer a fair number of other opiate substances over O-DSMT. That being said, I find this material favorable to a number of less enjoyable and effective substances in these drug classes. Alright, everyone. That is the end of our story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. and share with us your O-DSMT experiences down in the comments below. Check out the other videos and playlists on my channel, and I will see you in the next one, fam. Deuces.